And we're live. Excellent. And not too early. Or too late. Just about right time, really. Now we'll wait for people to get in. Make it clear that we are indeed going live. And basically filibustering till things actually are confirmed. I love OBS sometimes. Excellent connection. Yep, perfect. Right. Well, hello everyone. This is the first stream that I've done in December, and the last one, obviously. This is the New Year's stream, as if you will. Normally I do these on a weekend, but I decided, well, last weekend was, nothing bad happened, I was just a bit busy because it was Boxing Day, so everyone's all busy. Hello Boo. Nice to see you. Yeah, so I thought, we probably do with one. Stop filling the chat. You're gonna spam. I could kick people for spam, and I won't fail to kick you. Tease. Yeah, so I thought we'll call this stream the New Year's one. Now that 2020 is nearly over. Interesting bit of news from. Hello, Shane. Big hugs to you. Hope you by the end of this you might feel a bit better. So what I decided was to do this as the sort of New Year's stream. Look ahead to 2000. Really, Boo. Look ahead to 2021. See what we got there, and sort of reflect on this year, because there's some. Certainly in my area, there are a few good things to report on somehow. Of course, what's interesting today is now that we got all the new tier systems, I started this particular live stream trend in April this year because there was no Sci-Fi Scarborough and I had a book to launch. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just do it online, do it on YouTube. Seen enough people doing their online streams, people like Council of Geeks doing their, almost weekly streams. How they do that, I don't know. And thought, well, I don't have the energy to do one stream a week, or the inclination or interest of personality to do that. So instead I thought I'll do all these once per month. And it's interesting the way the world works, because today we found out that we are just about to enter tier 3 as of 2 hours time, really, which means that we will be temporarily closing our little shop, and we'll be almost back to where we started. So we'll be starting with the first stream of 2021 will be much like the first stream of 2020. Not that we're complaining, mind. So that's where things are there. Now, I thought I'd just sort of reflect on how 2020 is going, and sort of how, because I think there have been some good parts. I think quite a few of us have experienced some good aspects of 2020. I know I've already got my second book out, which was stressing to get that out for Sci-Fi Scarborough, then didn't happen. Fantastic. Thankfully there wasn't anything too rushed. And started on book 3. I believe there's going to be probably about 30 chapters, and I've done the prologue and the first 3 chapters, which is a sizable little chunk, but we'll get through it. Whether it will be done, if Sci-Fi Scarborough happens next year, whether it will be done by then, probably not, and I'm not going to rush it. So I'm going to take my time with this one, and hopefully it'll present itself in a good enough quality. So that's the New Year's sorted. Christmas this year was nice, quiet one. Probably the most interesting gift I got, even though I got most of them for myself, that sounds like a criticism, was this lovely little anime called Nadia. Now, didn't know too much about this going in, other than it's the creator of Evangelion, so I fully expect to be a absolute ball of tears, but after one episode it's absolutely hooked me, so I'll be very surprised if, given all our previous conversations about me taking inspiration from absolutely everywhere, that I won't find something of use in there. So yeah, the all things on the personal front are going well. I've taken a little break from writing my third book, just to sort of let things sit for a bit. There was a sort of period where I was writing stuff that I wasn't particularly happy with, but I'd always say that I think most writers have always had that as a little issue. Oh, you know it, Karen. Oh, I'm in for trouble. I'm in for trouble, aren't I? So with when I find that with writing any stuff in general, if it's like a long form thing, you will find yourself having to sit on ideas for a while, even if you're like mid flow. And I found that definitely in the second, writing the second book, what definitely helped me was a little time away from it, because I feel like if I can take a week or two away from stuff and actually start thinking about it again, I can get excited for the ideas again, and then go back to it and find that all the stuff I've done there is far more improved. My hair is awful today. I do apologise about that. My hair's awful every day. You can tell I've clearly been prepared. But of course, while I'm doing that, another big writing project of mine is my Doctor Who fan films. And since we're on the topic of writing, I've finally been able to get my little stop motion project off the ground, thanks to some wonderful help from friends and colleagues. Now that's really interesting because the script I've been using for episode 1 was written in 2017, whereas everything else has been written this year. And I know we always talk about like, oh, when we find that old fanfic, or when we find that old like short story we wrote when we were a lot younger. But bloody hell, my writing methods have definitely changed a lot since 2017. Looking back on it now and hearing people say these lines, I thought, wow. Further down the line, I might go back and redo the script a bit, but like nothing bad. I wouldn't like tell these people to do anything like bad or atrocious or whatever. But it's interesting how my dialogue's definitely improved. Although it's such a difference in how I've written dialogue, it's strange that in 3 years it's changed so drastically. Nowadays my stuff's more conversational, but back then it was more sort of like I'm not going to say cliche, but kind of non-naturalistic, quite expository. So it's interesting to see how things change. I remember when we were in, I for a while took an English language course, but only lasted a couple of weeks in college, and we sort of went into that about how different languages used for what and the difference. So it's very interesting to see that like 3 years ago, me was writing in a very different style for a Doctor Who fan film than he was to these books, which are more sort of, I can't remember who it was, but someone talked about how authors like to write in their own voice, and it. Looking back on my books compared to this, it's like my books definitely have like my voice. I know I don't really have much of an accent, but there was like just an ever so slight hint of Yorkshire in there that comes off, which is why I set it where it was. I mean, if it's spacemen in Yorkshire, if it's Yorkshire spacemen, then it's going to be a bit different. It'll be like Game of Thrones in space, as opposed to the context of my books where it makes a lot more sense. Yeah, it grows with you. I think if you were to use a really deep analogy, when we grow up as people, you know, we find our voice, we find our accent, we find our mannerisms, and it's the same with writing. I think we'll always start out sort of. I think a lot of us will start out still in the sort of mindset of, or sort of in the literacy style, if you were, of like we're in primary school and we're being told to write a short story, so we'll write it in this style, and then we sort of find our voices since then. I mean, I'm not entirely convinced that I have 100% found that like that one voice for my characters, which is great because there's so many of them that I can have a bit of fun with experimenting. So yeah, that is where things are at the moment, and it's interesting as well just to see like, because not meaning to like blow smoke up my bum, but like I was surprised actually that in like some of my earlier work that it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Because I know people love to look back on their old stuff and cringe, but I looked back on some of my old stuff and thought, you know what, you clearly can't spell and you can't format to save your life, but there's something in there. I remember there was an old project that I did have. It's interesting, I've had a few sort of like non-fan fiction-y ideas, and how they've evolved over time still kind of stick with me. Because I think book three involves sort of exploring a magical school setting, not Harry Potter. Thank you. Everyone will start liking it's Harry Potter and will not be impressed. But the sort of magical school setting of my current books, it's funny to look back on two previous ideas that I had. One was called Mount Imeon, and I think the other one was The Something Masters. It's probably had a really edgy, like 2013 Tumblr user trying to look edgy vibe to it, but it was Something Masters, and they all still consisted of, somewhere in there was a magical school focusing on the students. So I guess that idea has always been with me, and seeing stuff like the first few seasons of RWBY and other things since then, and Owl House Sentence, definitely helped, like, sort of almost drill into my head that, like, wow, you really want to tell this story. So I'm glad that of the 3 attempts I've had to do it, I feel pretty confident that the venture that I'm setting upon in book 3 is actually, like, the one that I want to go through. Right, as you can tell, I've had notes, because I thought I don't want to get too rambly or lost. But as I said, if anyone has anything to, add to, or, chime in with anything, then, by all means. But the pecking order of events for the next 50 minutes is that I saw a very interesting tweet given about, because previously I've sort of been very vocal on the old traditional versus self-publishing thing, and recently I've been made aware of some new things in there. So I will, of course, bring that up and have a conversation about that. And then I was sort of posed an interesting question that I won't say yet, but I'll save till later, that I think's worth addressing, especially for all us writers. Like, I know in the chat already we have, well, obviously we have Shane, who's still working on his stories. Stories, I want to say. And I'm going to out my girlfriend, Ace of Diamonds, aka Boo, of her various fan fictions that she's posted, which are all very good quality. I won't shame you by giving you the link. I won't shame you by advertising your link in public. I know you don't want that to be pasted everywhere. But we have a good writer's presence. Always more than one. Yeah. Sometimes we want to work on multiple stories. I know it's daunting when you have several. Got you. I know it's daunting when we have several. Yes, good quality. I know we'll fight you on it. Do you want to fight on a stream? I'll keep hydrated for scrapping for a fight. See, this is what you lost every time. This is what we lose every time when you didn't show up for half of them because you were working. Excuses. But yeah, the having multiple projects at once is a double-edged sword, really, because like you've got multiple ones, so you'll never be bored. But on the other hand, it's a constant juggle as to say which one do you start with, which one do you keep going, etc. Keep it civil in the chat. I don't want to come in there and start banning. I mean, I know I've generally tried to keep to at most 2 or 3 writing projects, and then like little bits on the side. Like if I'm feeling like I've hit a brick wall with one of them, then I'll just do like a little thing on the side. Whether I post it or not is a different matter, but it's just something to get the juices flowing. Because that's the thing. It's like if you get too far off the flow and you get too far off the train, it's quite difficult to get back on sometimes, especially with your ideas. So often I just end up starting things. Usually, as I said, nothing substantial. I wouldn't start a completely separate book. And I know I wouldn't work on 2 at the same time, even though I know that works for a lot of people. The sort of basically have something else when I hit the wall. Yeah, because it's nice to sort of, you've got one, now you can bounce off with the other. Sort of, again, you keep those creative juices flowing as sort of long as you can. I'm just trying to think what I think the most I've ever had at once was probably, well, again, because I only really write like in the prose format for my books, and then maybe 1 or 2 things I'll post in a non-determinate like spacing throughout the year on different websites. I know I do have a short story that I'm probably going to post on WhatsApp after I've got it edited. Is it WhatsApp? Yeah, I think it's WhatsApp. And that's I mean, you'll see, again, one of the things I'll be showing is I've never actually on the screen showed all the pieces of artwork that I've had commissioned all in one place, so that's what I'm going to do later. But what I'm planning to do is, no, not what I'm planning to do. What I have done in the past is, like, I'll have my book, I'll have these, like, random things that I'll post, and then, like, indeterminate little bits and bobs. But, yeah, I've got a short that's going to be coming up soon. It just needs editing, and I just sort of need to work out when I'm going to post it, because I was wondering if I should post it around the festive season, but then I thought, aside from being too busy with that, I just thought it's not particularly festive as such, so I might. I mean, I'll probably just upload it whenever I feel like it, whenever it's ready, because it's only a couple of pages long. But it's a short called Frost Fair, which is about two of the characters that you meet in book 2 that you'll see again in book 3, and it's kind of their little side story, because that's always something I wanted to do. Like, I'm telling this story, but also want to offer freebies on the side. They don't offer any spoilers or anything. They just kind of open up the world a bit. I know that there is I know that there's already one that I've posted to WhatsApp that I do need to actually start advertising again, because I've almost kind of actually needed to remind myself that I wrote it, which is a sort of side story that takes place at the end of book 1 into book 2, and that is pardon me, that's something I wrote after book 1 but book 2, so I could still, get the feel of everything, so I don't come back into it completely cold. So yeah, I've actually, to be fair, I think I've talked about what I'm planning to do on the next Sci-Fi Scarborough, provided it happens. With the big C, we're not allowed to say the virus, because YouTube will get very upset with us for some reason. And if it goes ahead next year, great. If not, I don't think they're saying they're going to give up anytime soon, so maybe 2022. But what I would ideally like to do there when I'm selling books 1 and 2 on the stands, quite like to offer something else as well. So if I can get whether it be Frost Fair or this new one, I'm not sure, but I'll see if I can get a few copies of that printed off and kind of like offer it as a 3-in-1 deal. If you buy 1 and 2, you can get this thrown in as well, just because I'm that much of a desperate person. So yeah, that's hopefully the plan. Hello, Moody. Oh, you'll get your time soon when it comes to gushing. Right, so let's talk about some of these points that I found. Now, I found a very interesting tweet from a fellow author, and I'm just going to get the exact wording because I don't want to paraphrase. It's very interesting. Now, this is from someone who I think most people on the writing community probably have interacted in. It's C Night Writes, and this was responding to for all you modern speakers out there, this was pretty much the tea being spilt, which was responding to the post basically saying that self-publishing is the best option for amateur writers. Now, if you want my opinion on that, I think that's a load of BS. I think if you are actually going into this with the mindset of amateur writers, then I think that's immediately quite elitist. Self-publishing to traditional publishing has always been they've always been strange bedfellows, because there are some people that have got into their minds that traditional publishing is the only real valid form of publishing, and then anything that's self-published is just a load of unmodulated, unmitigated crap, which is completely wrong. I think that if you saw a lot of people that get publishing deals, and I'm specifically looking at Stephanie Meyer and E.L. James on this one, people that probably only got their publishing deals because of basically the pitch of their book and not the quality within it, because those books really should be edited better, especially if they're official. If they self-published, obviously they wouldn't have the same amount of success that they would if they were traditionally published. And, you could say that all the people that are self-publishing, if they were self-published, they could be the next best thing. But the debate then comes into, well, it depends on what you want. If you're going in with the aspirations of wanting to be the next best thing, then you kind of should hype yourself up to disappointment, really. You shouldn't be writing for anything grander than, the desire of wanting to tell your stories. So, with the notion of, in my opinion, rather unfortunate opinion of self-publishing is best only for amateur writers, the response was that they've been professionally editing for 12 years, worked with in-house publishing and freelance for indies and traditional publishers, and have learnt a few things. The traditional market is corrupted and closed off to many. Indie authors are often more talented. Arseholes are generally not good writers. And I wanted to bring this up because in the past, I've often sort of talked about the pros and cons of traditional versus self-publishing. And again, I've only come in with the opinion of a self-published person, but I as I've said before, I would never ever have considered going to a publisher for multiple reasons. One, because I don't have the mental willpower to basically go through weeks, months, and in some cases with some probably years of rejections just to try and get a story out there when I could self-publish and get it out there whenever I wanted to. And two, I feel like with the story that I'm trying to tell, I feel like a lot of publishers would try and affect it in some way. So at least then, for better or worse, the vision's out there in its proper form. But something that I never really was aware of and didn't really... Yeah, shame. Self-published authors do very well, and in the end, what makes your book successful as the reader is not the method it was published. And that is definitely ignored by many in an unfortunate way. You know, if they don't see that it isn't published by X published house, then it clearly isn't very good. Not the case. But something I wasn't aware of when I sort of did the initial pros versus cons was what Charlie had brought up, which was the traditional market is corrupted and closed off to many. I think, like, without meaning to get too deep, I think people would struggle nowadays to find an area of media that isn't a bit corrupted. But as I've mentioned before, that I have seen some unfortunate incidents. So again, this is always why, whenever anyone makes that decision, whether it be public or traditional, like, it's fine to want traditional, and if that works for you, then fantastic. And you know, you could very well be sitting on big success. Likewise, it could be sitting on big success with self-publishing. It's completely on the option to you, but it depends on how much you're willing to potentially, well, basically how much wiggle room you want to give an outside source, and how much, and again, paramount that you always do the research. I'll always say that to people who are looking to traditionally publish, because the horror stories are quite plentiful. I would say that traditional is more of a risk, but self-publishing carries its own things. Like, obviously, you have to be your advertiser, but then you could be that with publishing as well. It depends on who you get and how they do it. But I think that if you're going to go into this with the mindset of, I want to basically have complete control, then obviously you go to traditional. And the thing that sparked this, of course, was that just the whole debate that became of it from someone who's worked on both is that, like, you see that the kind of manipulations can be there, which is why you need to be so careful. And you'd think going into this that it wouldn't be like that difficult. Like, once you get your publisher, fine, but you wouldn't assume that there'd be chances in there. Yeah, very specific interests. Sometimes the greatest book won't fit these interests. Frank Herbert spent ages trying to get Dune out there. You know, it's traditionally publishing is always going to be an uphill battle for some people. Not all people, but some people, depending on what they've written, who they go to, how they, you know, sort of go through this process. So we'll always say that give it a go if you want, but if you ever think that like self-publishing isn't is gonna weigh you down at any point, then I'd say that is complete nonsense. And I will always make sure that this is known, because if someone goes into this and sort of isn't quite prepared for it, then they can really be taken for a ride. Like, the last thing I want to see is obviously people's pride and joys that they've spent years on get snatched away from them and then no longer becomes theirs. I know that's definitely a fear of mine, and thankfully self-published, don't need to. Pause for drink. It's funny as well how we talk about adaptations and whatnot. It's funny how that becomes a big thing as well. Like, I know none of us here are ever going to probably look at that, but it's always fun to think, what medium you'd prefer it as. Probably a question for you, Shane, of all the ideas that you had, I'm going to send you a question now. Do you think any of yours would be, if you were given the choice to translate it to a visual medium, are there any stories of yours that you would, and then if you would, what genre, what medium would they be? Would they be movie, TV show, miniseries, animated, etc.? Because we've had this conversation in the past, but it's always interesting to think just how, and especially as a fan of Dominic Noble's videos, just sort of thinking how different one piece can be interpreted. Like, I know if I was given the choice, I don't know if I said this, but if I was given a choice in my stuff, I'd say there are two options. One would be miniseries, because I think it gives you so much more time. Sort of like what Sky did with the Terry Pratchett's. I know opinion on them is divided, but like either a miniseries, because you could probably get a decent budget for that, or if it was going to do any of the later ideas I had, probably animated. And then if that was the case, I'd probably say something like in the style of some of the Netflix shows I think they've done with DreamWorks. So that would be Dragon Prince, She-Ra, Carmen Sandiego, I want to say. I think that's right. Anyway, so yeah, went off topic a bit there, so that's that. Now, I found a very interesting question that was sort of posed, and I sort of wanted to give my take and opinion on it as well, and sort of see what everyone else's thoughts were. Because a lot of people say, or most people say, that if you are going to become an author, one thing that you want to do is read a lot. So you get different opinions, so you get sort of... Oh, I think my stories would translate to TV or film without raising controversial subjects to people would water down. No doubt animation or a graphic novel. Yeah, graphic novels would do really well. Oh, see, adult animation, I would love to see adult animations done properly. Like, people are so hung up with the like crudely animated Family Guys and American Dads, but like a proper... Yeah, exactly. Like a proper adult animation with like high quality stuff. I mean, I would watch that, and I'm not even like, I'm pretty weak-kneed when it comes to horror or graphic novel. Yeah. Oh, I can't remember the artist, but whoever does the art for the comic book Monstrous, Spawn. Thank you, Spawn. That was a good animated show. Yeah. I can't remember who did the comic art for the comic Monstrous, but that is definitely one of the most high quality that I've ever seen. And I think if you're looking for, even though they're obviously caught up with that show, but comic rather, but whoever does the drawings for that, I think you could probably do no wrong with that kind of style of comic book when it comes to definitely more horror subjects, especially as you know yours are so intertwined with dreams and all the dark things that come with that. So yeah, that would definitely work. But yeah, the next question, and again it sort of ties into the sort of aspirations you have as a writer, which is when people say like you should like read to sort of widen your sort of prose abilities. The sort of next question that sort of came on from that, which is what I was interested in exploring and sort of getting a back and forth in, is the Max did a good job with darker subjects. Oh, the Max. That is familiar. I'm gonna have to Google that after this. So yeah, the question is, if you're like reading through different prose to get your ideal sort of literacy style, should you then read the classics, and then would reading the classics help? And that was an interesting question because I sort of was discussing it with Mum in the shop, and we sort of had an interesting back and forth because it was like, do you want to read these things to sort of see how other authors did it? Yes, but the issue that you have then is, would you want to be reading, you know, your Stephen Kings, your Frank Herberts, your God, even your Shakespeare's, and do you want to be reading those and sort of coming away from it thinking, oh, okay, well, if they've done it in this style, then I can do it in this style or even better. So it's an interesting double edge again, because like you want to read a lot to see how different people do it, but you obviously don't want to go away from it thinking, oh, well, that's, you know, that Fitzgerald book was pretty easy reading, you know, oh, I could do that and become the next best so-and-so. Of course, that's something that we'd always want to avoid people doing. So it's interesting, like, and always when we're in school, I read classics like Poe, Mark Twain's Dark Stuff. Wow, I'm uncultured. Baudelaire and Marquis de Sade. Watch me try and fail to say correct names. But yeah, like when you're reading those classics, like you would probably like. I think when people read these things, they are looking for sort of maybe inspiration, but maybe sort of seeing how this is sort of seeing like how other people do it. Like when you go to when you go and see a show that you know inside out and say, oh, how does this person tackle this character differently, or how does this plot translate to a different medium, etc., etc. But as again, you don't want to obviously go back either emulating this person or inadvertently doing that, because I know when everyone here has always had the same thing, which is we've all in high school / college / university, whatever, have all had that moment where we've had to study a book and we've very rarely liked it. But I feel like the thing is that I have such a vague memory of most of those books. I know we've read The Great Gatsby, and any memory of that has pretty much come from the clips I've seen of the Baz Luhrmann film. What else do we read? Obviously all Shakespeare's. And then I struggle to remember anything that we've read in high school, which says a lot. But the ones that I do remember, the one that I do remember from college, and the fact that I'm a Whovian becomes very clear, would be when we did the World War One theme in the first year of college in English literature, and there was a book in there called Regeneration. Oh, Lord of the Flies. That was Lord of the Flies was a combination English and drama, so thankfully I managed to avoid both somehow. But the with Regeneration, I think her name was Pat Baxter, Pat Baker. I don't know, something like that surname. Born on the same day as me, which was interesting. But she wrote a very interesting book called Regeneration, and that one definitely stuck with me for two reasons. Well, actually, three reasons. The shallowest first, because of the title, Doctor Who, immediately like 1+1, always going to be in there. But the second was, it was actually a very engaging book that shocked me, because I was totally expecting to go into this sort of sleeping my way through it. But when it came to actually sitting down and reading it, I thought, oh, actually, this is shockingly engaging. We aren't going into these not wanting to be engaged, but more often than not, that high schools and colleges will always pick the deep, worthy ones. Of Mice and Men, that was the one. That was one of the few that I didn't mind reading, as depressing as it was. That was for high school. And more often than not, they just show us the movies anyway, and that's more memorable than the book, but you're just kind of like, oh yeah, that happened. I don't even know if it was for an exam. I think it was just one of the things they did to torture us. That and Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet over and over again. But when it came to Regeneration, it was actually... Yeah, I did a Mice and Men. Those bloody rabbits, George. Oh, getting flashbacks. But yeah, when it came to Regeneration, it was very interesting, because I guess what my biggest takeaway was something that sort of still I find myself coming into with my new writings, which is how all the different ways that you can explore, whether it be mental trauma, PTSD, all this stuff. And this was written by someone who wasn't alive during World War One, but had copious records of it. And I guess I sort of fluctuated towards that because of how they dealt with all those different sort of aspects of man in war, if you will. And I sort of still, even though I don't specifically remember it by name, I will still often find myself going back and almost bringing up those same memories and experiences. I haven't actually read it since then, and that was at least 7 years ago. And again, I've probably seen the movie once or twice, but probably looked up the movie. And great one, it's got Jonathan Pryce in it. It's interesting that one good book that I really clicked with 7 years ago still kind of resonates, and it's something I didn't even really consider until I started thinking about this. So when going back to the whole thing of should you read the classics, I don't know if Regeneration counts as a classic, but it definitely did the job that I think a lot of people would sort of be going to them to look for, which is you kind of want to see how things are written, but how topics are handled. If you go to any of the typical horror, typical romance, typical psychological, then you'll see the reasons why these are good, but then you also don't want to be seen to being the copycat of. You know, you kind of want to do your own thing. So the sort of back and forth of that is interesting. Why, you know, going back to an old conversation that many people have, which is the high school English thing is always so bizarre because like they struggle to get things that kids really engage with, and then they think, well, should we keep them on the classic? Should we do any new stuff? Personally, I think it would do them quite well to do a mix, because I think a lot of good stuff's been published recently that often gets ignored and probably do just as good. You know, for every Of Mice and Men that was written in, I don't know, the pre-1950s, and for every Great Gatsby, you know, you can probably find something that says just as much. Because again, what they probably want is like worthy stuff that says stuff about society. And while in my writing, I think that there's a place for that. Like, my stuff isn't massively preachy, but there is kind of societal sort of allegories and sort of things you can take from that. Honestly, nothing wrong with a good old Dracula. Yeah. I mean, it's been adapted so many times, then it's just as well that they just sitting down, enjoy Dracula, and then we'll like give you a paper on it. Especially if they show some of the ones where the Dracula's quite hot. That'll get all the women and bisexuals in the audience going. But it's like, I don't think it's this thing with like whether literature should be worthy or enjoyable or both, or you know it's kind of what people expect to get from a book. And what's great about my stuff is that the reviews I've had have kind of been, people have kind of taken away from it what I was hoping they would, which was, you know, this isn't going to reinvent the wheel. It's a, you know, it's a fun, like, thought compelling thing that you can like pick up. It's simply written, and then you can like, you know, read the first one, read the second one, read the third one when it comes out, hopefully, and like, you know, it's the story, you know, beginning, middle, and end. It's at best, I'd say what it might do is like offer a bit of like solace to people who were, you know, probably grieving a loved one, because that's a theme developing in there, you know, ghosts and supernatural and whatnot. Or alternatively, you know, it's just something you can pick up and sort of, it can kill a bit of time. Especially when the sort of big debate among like education circles is like, well, you've got the books that are worthy and say a lot about this time period, and then you've got like the classics that might not say a lot, but they're classics because they're, you know, Shakespeare's or whatnot. So it's interesting that like there is, and it depends on how you are as a writer as well. I know there are deep writers out there that will say a lot more than I ever could, and then there are the people that are there to just have fun. It's all dependent on how you are as a writer, and again, that's why I think sort of going through the classics will definitely help. Well, no, not going through the classics, just going through different works will always be beneficial, because you can see what engages you, and you'll always write with what you engaged in. Because I meant to say this actually, when I was doing my Doctor Who's, I know it's just fan film script writing, but what I found very interesting was when it came to doing one plot, I had a whole vastly researched thing that was going to be a pure historical, and it was going to be the story of oh god, I've forgotten his name, and he's really big too. The guy who wrote Les Miserables and Hunchback, Victor Hugo. Was it Victor Hugo? I think it was him. You know, a lot of like Les Miserables and Hunchback. And oh, hello, Amber. You had me at Hot Dracula. Oh, I bet I did. Honestly, when I'm writing, I think of topics I enjoy exploring, what I like, mixed all together and go from there. If other people find meaning in it, awesome. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's like if you are going through as many different books as you can, like sort of trying to find how other people do it, generally what's interesting you is what you're going to write. So as I said, the fan film short idea I had, well researched into like Victor Hugo's life, like French Revolution, all there, all the parts done, like all the characters that inspired the characters from Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Mis and all these things, and Phantom of the no, that wasn't Phantom, that was Gaston Leroux. But all these like characters that were all there, ready to go. And then I came to write it, got to I think the second scene and bored myself senseless because like it was heavily researched and I was interested in it, but then I thought, oh, like how can I actually shape all this into a compelling narrative? Answer is I couldn't. And fittingly, I decided to scrap that in favour of doing a vampire story. Because again, not only did it interest me, it was something more within my ability to write. And again, that's the thing, ability to write. Like, we should always have confidence in ourselves, but we shouldn't always push ourselves to, like, break our own boundaries, because while it could work, often than not, I find that when I sort of try to push myself out of my comfort zone, two things happen. One, I surprise myself. Two, I write something that is incredibly boring. Thankfully, that hasn't happened with any of my books, because I kind of... it's within my sort of comfort zone. Even if I do, like, push the themes or push the tone to a completely different... completely different area. Big research board in 10 minutes, been there, done that. Yeah, because in our minds, we know, like, where it begins, where it ends, it's all up there. Then when you come to put pen to paper, your brain stalls and you think, oh no. But as I said, thankfully that hasn't happened to me too many times and hopefully won't happen for a while. Because book 4, that's the one set in Edinburgh in 1915, and I've done research for that, but I think, and this is probably the biggest thing as well, especially if you're writing anything with a lot of research, I think it's plot first, then research second, whereas a lot of the issues with the time where I've tried to do research for the Who special was research first, then plot. So ideally you want to... there was an old Sherlock Holmes quote which was something along the lines of... was it facts to suit theories or theories to suit facts? It's one of those ways, but basically, you know, you need to have your plot and then shape it to the research. That way, then you kind of know where things are going. And if the research then doesn't line up with the plot, then you know, correct. That's what I've done. Probably won't work for everyone, but that's certainly what I found. Because people will be able to like trawl through history books and find the plots in there. You know, in the stories, in the historical facts. I tell you, if we always talk about what genres we would never touch, and I would not touch like historical non-fiction with a barge pole. Historical fiction depends. Again, it's like like if you were to do a historical, like whether it be historical, supernatural, historical horror. There's the thing, not as many historical horrors. That's something I think people could have fun with. Because if you think historical horror, you kind of end up in Dracula or Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein, all that stuff. So I think if anyone wants a good idea to throw out there, historical horror, and maybe not even in the Victorian era. Like, where's our Jacobean horror stories that aren't connected to witches? That's a free idea to post to everyone out there. You can have that if you want. Yep, there you go. I will accept 10% of your cut for having the idea if you suddenly become very successful with it, Shane. Joking, of course. So as I said, it's interesting because like I don't think people kind of really highlight like that writers should always strive to new things, like strive to you know, push yourself out of your comfort zone and do things, but also kind of identify your writing ability early on, because I think audiences will kind of sometimes pick up on like trying to reach for like an area that you almost can't hit, if you will. Like you can say that you're going from like floofy romance to like really hardcore like historical drama, and like it's almost like there's nothing wrong with as an author having a brand and then going against it, but it depends on like how successfully you feel you're able to go from one to the other. So yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't actually given that too much thought, so it's interesting that you can like pose these questions to yourself. Right, as we're going into the last 15 minutes, and as I know some of the contributors are here, there is something that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and as I've got plenty, I decided I'm actually going to do this. One thing I have done, as I said, throughout the course of the almost 3 years now I've been writing these books is get quite a bit of artwork done. And I thought I've been posting them online, but I haven't actually showed them off all in one place. And I do intend at some point to make a long form Twitter post. I've been uploading them to DeviantArt slowly now that I've got the artist's permission. I just need to get the one or two artists' permission from this. But pardon me. I thought I'll actually use the stream as an opportunity to go through all the pieces, because I thought, well, we've just had Christmas, New Year's coming. Why not spend the last 15 minutes? You should get your eyes, because you're on here, Bellum, and I'm going to gush. Especially you, Moody, wherever you may be. You don't want me to gush, but I'm gonna. So I thought I'll actually use this opportunity to showcase them off, provided that the screen caps work. So please let me know if you can see it. So I'm gonna turn my video device off and pray this works. Okay, please let me know, everyone, if you can see that. That will be the art folder on my Windows. Yes, gushing. Okay, can everyone see that? I see. Perfect. Right, let's just fiddle around very quickly with OBS. Okay, talk among yourselves. All this artist is great. Yes, and yours included, Bellum. Let's see. Display capture, primary monitor. Yep. Okay, so. Yep. Okay, so. If everyone can see that fine, this is going to be the artist's showroom, if you will. So we start off with, this is a wonderful commission by one of my regulars, Alison, who you can find on Alison on Instagram and DeviantArt, so that's ALICIN. I will, when this becomes live on YouTube, I will put all the links in the description or on a pinned comment. So this first particular one, let me just check to make sure, can everyone see that? Yep, cool. Okay, so this first picture is of the villain, well, secondary antagonist in book 1, villains of book 2 and 3, Tremor, aka Law. This is the first commission to be done of book 3, which is of the prologue. So as you can see, things clearly won't go very well for her. Bloody love this artist. The amount of detail she does is brilliant. So that's picture 1 of 2. The second one is a less sympathetic Law, also done by Alison, in her more unhinged stage, if you will. She is loco for Cocoa Puffs at this stage. And are there any Avatar: The Last Airbender fans out there, at this stage of the plot, I can definitely say, if you think of Azula in the last few episodes of Avatar, that's where she's at the moment. Then, for all those on my girlfriend's server, prepare to gush. This next one is coincidentally going to be the cover art for the Frost Fair show and side story. And this is the Manzazu, Al and Arida, the two, basically the couple from book 3 that I decided I fell in love with so much, I put them in book 2 because why not? And this is from Faded Tombstone, aka Lisa Tomei on Twitter. She's done 3 pieces, and I need to throw money at her so I can make her do more. This next one is from another regular, Zenobia Star, who you can follow on DeviantArt, and I think it's Zenobia Save for Work on Twitter. Again, I'll post it in the comments just to be sure. This one is of the Sentinel from book 2, which she's done in a fantastic, almost brooch design. Absolutely love that one. Let me just make sure everything's going. Oh yeah, everyone can see that, great. So yeah, Sentinel in a brooch design. She featured a couple of streams ago, I did the prologue to book 2, and she featured in it. So she is the character that we see at the beginning of book 2 and the end of book 1 in a coma. Hence the scar and the greying hair. Love the details on that. This is another of Alison's. This is one of the ghosts, Abhay Singh. Bellum, I think you're a fan. And again, this was from the first batch that she gave me as well. So when you consider that this is generally viewed by her as being like old and inferior, it's just like, well, what a start. Another one from Zenobia. This is Gabby and Trem. We'll love a bit of that. This was, I think, the first picture I had done from her, and I've definitely used it a lot because it says a lot about their relationship without needing to say any words. Definitely beneficial for Twitter's short character limit. Next we have Tremodor and his two ghosts, Iskra and Landon Stride. Another great one because I know a few people who've inadvertently ended up having a bit of the hots for him just based on this picture. And I feel a bit sorry for them because of the rough time that I give some of my characters. I've always said that for all those that talk about fancasts, if anyone here's seen iZombie or any of the Funhouse gamers, then I've always said that Tremodor would be Raoul Coley, Landon Stride would be Stephen Fry, and Iskra would be a Russian actress who I believe was in the Blacklist. I basically know her from We Bare Bears because I'm uncultured. It's a cute show. And I believe her name's Margarita Lavrenti or something. It's something like that. Great Russian accents in all of those, so it would help for her character. Another great Alison piece, this one being, again, AL from one of the previous ones, gave her a picture of a Macross songstress to like really heighten the fact that she's a performer. I love that one. This one's of the Menzazu and Queen, the first of three by the cover artist, Sick, with 5 S's. I think also known as Avery on Twitter. Again, I will link where appropriate. So that's great. That was the Duty of the Queen short story front cover, which I love. This one, I actually won in a contest, so I was very surprised by that. And that is from Shasha Art, who did a wonderfully devious looking Trem. I always use that one to say that she and her mother both share one thing in common with their awful villainous grandfather, and that is a wicked devious side when it comes to getting into fights and protecting their loved ones. A little bit of the devious smirk comes through. And speaking of, this one's done by the brilliant Urban Knights Art, and because he's UK based, I sent him the idea and got this for about £10 as a postcard, so I believe I've shown it off before, but I actually own that, so that's going to be a must on the Sci-Fi Scarborough stall. That is a terrific piece, portal water, and that is black and white on not like card, like brown paper card, as opposed to plastic card. What am I on about? With the skull. Always love the good skull mask. Let's see, we have another from Alison. Another one for you, Bellum, since I know you're a fan. That's Ghost Thomas Hogarth, who was always, in my mind, like one of the early Shakespearean actors, and as a result is very foppish and theatrical by nature. Always going off on speeches, like Shakespearean speeches. Nobody understands a word he's saying. He's a lovable doofus, basically. Now, this is a pencil sketch from Lisa Tomei again, aka Faded Tombstone. Since we're talking about horror, love these. This is the visual representation of what a corrupted soul looks like, which is basically if a soul's been hanging about and hasn't gone to the afterlife when it's supposed to, it goes a bit wrong. And when I say wrong, I mean really nasty. Basically, it starts becoming corpse-like. I love the body on there, actually reminds me a bit of Rem from Death Note, because that's a good sort of indication to see just how twisted they've really gone. So, like, gnarly teeth, all white eyes, hairs falling out, bits of skull. It's like warped Phantom of the Opera. Just brilliant. Sky Bloodworth, again from Alison, one of the duo of Sky and Jenny, who's one of the first ghosts we meet. Again, great work on her part. Again, another brilliant Faded Tombstone Lisa Toomey one, which is probably the most photorealistic Gabby and Trem that I've ever seen. Looks absolutely incredible. And these were just viewed as sketches as well, so I really need to like have a strict word with her about what you consider sketches and what you call pieces of art, because these definitely count. Here we go. One of Bellum's own, and this is the first picture that was ever done of Gabby, our protagonist, Gabby Morgan, in all her floofy-haired Glory standing by the river Styx, as we see in, I think, chapter 5, 6 of book 1. That's been sent to a lot of artists. This one's great. This one's kind of book 2, kind of book 3. Again, from Zenobia Star, which is one of the antagonists, Lan. No eyes to speak of, because they have almost Steven Universe levels of future vision, where they can see different timelines before they happen, and basically they don't need their eyes. And that's with another member of their clan, who is also has the same superpowers, if you will. And I just love the contrast as well with how Alison's drawn them, especially with how vibrant the colours of the outfits are, from all black to from your all black and hood to your green robes. Very nice. Love this one. This is actually my desktop background. Again, well, I say I love them. I love them all. Like, if you ask me to pick a favourite, I will say no. This one's of 3 characters that I haven't written a lot for yet, but certainly plan to. These are the Queen's Guard, so all the people that all the women that guard the Queen, basically, obviously. But we've got her. The running joke is her in the middle is female Zuko from Avatar. And you know what? It was never intended to be, but now that it's in my head, I can't get it out of my head. And I joke that the one on the right ended up looking a bit like She-Ra, inadvertently, but again, I love it, and I'm not complaining. Another great thing as well was the character on the left, with the hair and the face paint. I actually didn't have a strong enough idea of what that character would look like, so I actually told Alison to just go mad. Like, she has the design of the armour, which is based on a 3D printed armour, actually. It's quite popular. It's posted on a lot of Google image searches, especially since Manzazu, they like all their rings and their magical gemstones, so to have armour literally embedded gemstones in them is perfectly on brand. And I basically said, just go to town with the designs. It'll end up in the book, and that's what's happened. Love that look. Final Ghost, we have Jenny Abernathy, totally not Marilyn Monroe, and totally not this universe's Marilyn Monroe, again by Alison. This is obviously the Trem front cover in all its glory. On paper you never really get a good look at just how vast this one is and just how much detail is in it. It's absolutely terrific. This was the first thing that Alison did for Avery / Ick did for and I am just so blown away. I remember when we went to Liverpool actually that I got that. And it was around the same time that a dear friend of mine actually came out as non-binary, so it was fun times for all, really. When I saw that, I was just blown away. I nearly cried in Liverpool, like looking at that. That's how much it took me back. Now, if I've got my calculations correct, yay! This is our very own Moody Glitch, or Glitch Moody. She did Trem's parents, so Trem's father and mother, in her, quite frankly, adorable art style. And yes, I am gushing. Let's see if you've... Yep, that's still working. So yeah, Trem's parents done in Moody's adorable art style. And now what's interesting is, again, first person to draw Trem's father as well, who actually hasn't had... He's sort of been quite underrated, really. I should feature him more because, as you see, if you look at Trem and then her parents, you can see what she's taken from both parents very well in that, especially with the black eyes and the black eyes of the mother and the darker hair of the father. Now, newest character comes from Zenobia Star, and that is Reclusa, who I will not mention anything about because. Well, spoilers for book 3 onwards. She's ended up being quite a recurring character in future plans. Someone loves to make a joke on the... I won't name names because I won't shame them, as tempting as it is. Someone on one of the servers I'm on keeps saying, "Oh, it's the lady with a Neopet on her head." Yes and no. And what it is you'll see later on that certain people will have headdresses of different things. So she had basically a spider on there because if you know your arachnids, Reclusa is a type of spider. And there's going to be a sort of theme with that and other people with different headdresses on, sort of denoting like status and where they come from, etc., etc. And I gave the brief to Zenobia to sort of give them a very unique, very atypical Manzazuan look. And I definitely say that that passes with flying colours, because I think the sort of change, the sort of very different look to her definitely singles her out among the crowd, especially since most of the Manzazu will dress in the tunics, so it's all nice to get a change for that. Now, the book 2 cover art, we see our three antagonists, the three sisters, and what I love is that it's almost it's different, but it's almost reused background. So you've still got the crest, you've still got the purple and black starfield, but what I love is, I just said, let's just take that Manzazuan crest that Trem was standing behind on the first one and just do a massive cross through it, because, you know, things aren't as happy as they were before. And one thing that I was actually an inspiration for that is, if anyone's seen Steven Universe, when I think it was season 2 or 3, they revealed the sort of like the full-length version of the Steven Universe theme song, and then you had Jasper, Peridot, Lapis, and the first reveal of Yellow Diamond, and they made them look like these massive threats with like the light shining down behind them, making them look very shadowy, and that was definitely one of the inspirations for that. Because I thought, let's make the picture sort of speak for itself. You know, you got her on the left looking unsure, her on the right not much look at all, and her in the middle with, like, you can see that if you were the Steven Universe fans, you know, you've got your Lapis, your Peridot, and your Jasper. And if you know how Steven Universe goes with those characters, you might sort of predict where that's going. Now, another one, this is from Alison. This is the head teacher of the academy that she finds herself in. And the brief for that was, I wanted to do a sort of Kitchener, Your Country Needs You kind of pose, and sort of like a poster. So as a result, she's given this a wonderfully painted vibe. Again, you'll notice the horn headpiece, because, well, what self-respecting teacher wouldn't look scary with massive gold horns on their heads? I won't say where the inspiration for that came from. But yeah, that was very much a sort of like recruitment poster. Join the Manzazuan Lyceum. You'll be thankful you did. Because are you going to tell her no? Look at that smirk. She's got your number. Now, Trem's mother. This was done by a fellow writing community member, tattooist and artist. The Panagat Tales, aka Mackenzie Austin, who sort of was doing a drawing contest among her mutuals, and I thought, well, you know, I haven't had any of Trem's mum done, because I've got Trem, several ones, and her grandfather. Let's see where she gets it from. And what I love is, I've put Trem's grandfather on the card sketch, this picture, and then the picture of Trem smirking, and thought, smug attitude clearly runs in the maternal side of the family, along with the black eyes. And finally, a character that a lot of people have got excited about, for good reason. This is from Variantia again, aka Bellum, and this is Vala, who is a character that we're introduced to in Book 3, who's in the Manzazu Lyceum, who has a very powerful ability, is also non-binary, and basically needs to be protected at all costs. You know, a lot of people in Book 3 are going to be put to the test, so to speak, and Vala will have their own tests to go through, and won't just stop at Book 3, really, because I'm always looking ahead, seeing how I can expand these characters, and Vala's one to look out for. So, a lot of stuff to be excited about, and this is the collection of artwork that I have so far, but I can assure you it is ever growing. Vala, my spouse. That is a Neopet. What? Oh god, it's all people can see. Right, how do I turn my camera back on? Technical difficulties. There we go. Yes, Moody, you better cry. Heck, that is so old, I could do their hair better now. Oh, you artists and your self-criticism. That's why I could never be an artist. What do you mean you're simping? Oh, I'm finding all these comments. You are all insane, and I love you, and I love it. Right, so that was all the art so far. Well, there's one piece there was a piece from Alison that was Tremor Grandfather, but she isn't massively satisfied with that, so I haven't shown it out of respect for her, and she reckons she could probably do it better. So I'll hold off on that until she sort of has a stronger opinion either way. Right. So the only other thing that I've really got to talk about after the art case is the next stream might be a little bit different. I'll see how it goes on, because chances are I usually do these. First of all, we are all simps here. It's just as well we're not on Twitch. We would have been banned by now. People would think this was a Pokemon stream. My goodness. So the next stream might be different, because depending on how far into January 2021 it will be, I might do something a little bit different visually, so you're not always looking at my face the whole time, because I think you've all suffered enough. Haha, self-deprecation. The next stream might be sort of quasi, sort of, this format, Q&A, etc., but also possibly a little bit on the gaming side as well, because basically I decided at some point that I was going to start rendering some of the locations in my books in Minecraft. Now, I know Minecraft is a sort of coming and going trend. It's sort of generally perceived to be a bit cringy to do Minecraft, etc. But oh well, it's what I do. So one thing that I've decided to do way back when, like a couple of months ago, was do some of the locations in Minecraft. So the next one will probably be another sort of chat, but also sort of doing a sort of walkthrough tour of some of the things I've created. So I've already done the Manor House, of which it's based on, and is already the best thing I've ever built. Then there is also some of the locations in Book 2, and also starting to build the Lyceum location from the third one, which is by far the most ambitious thing I've ever built, and getting very paranoid, so I'm constantly like backing up the world. So next stream I might show a bit of that off if anyone's interested, just to sort of show the fruits of my labour, if you will, and sort of give a bit of a visual representation of what I think some of these locations would look like. So for anyone that's either read the books or is interested in, then it might give you a sense of the aesthetics that's going on. I think the one that I always laugh about was that the climax of Book 2 involves them trashing a supermarket, so anyone that's worked in retail should find that very cathartic, knowing that the heroes and villains that you've spent the whole book watching just absolutely trash the place. So that was for all the people that suffer in working in like corporate shops and like behind the tills. So that's for them. And the way I did that was I built sort of like a replica of your standard supermarket, and then got some TNT and poked holes in it. So yeah, that might be the next one. I'll see how I go with the progression of building stuff, because now that we're not working for at least 2 more weeks, I've got a bit more free time in my hand to write and do other things. So yeah, I'll see, because I'm starting to really get a hand of Streamlabs, so if I'm able to multitask, then that would be an added bonus. So yeah, I think I'll do it on here. I don't think I'll change to Twitch. I think I'll probably save Twitch for irregular gaming, that I know my girlfriend's going to hound me for not gaming as much, since she's the regular gamer and I'm a regular commentator. But yeah, I think I can feel my voice starting to go. Starting to sound like Palpatine. The dark side of the Force is the pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. Speaking of unnatural, me. So, I think we are... 1 hour 9. What do you mean, whoa, hey? Listen, you came onto this stream, you know what you were getting into. Yes, I will start streaming at some point, since I'm only doing this once a month. Yeah, I might. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of hype going around Mandalorian and stuff. I've got my Star Wars games. I can always do that, and I don't know, probably Minecraft if anyone finds that interesting. So we'll see how that goes on the next stream. Could be a mitigated disaster, could be a success. As with everything, we'll see. But I think that's probably about time to start wrapping up. So this has been the good. This has been the end of 2020 live stream. Started these out obviously just to make up for the fact that I couldn't. Can't wait to make more Trem content. Oh, thank you, Moody, and I really hope you enjoy it when you read it. I should say, a friend of mine has come up with a name. A friend of mine ages ago came up with a name for like the Trem fandom, which will probably only consist of about 3 people. But she said any fan of Trem should be called Tremors, and I'm like, you're a genius. You're an absolute genius. I would never have come up with that in a million years. So if we, in the most like cringiest possible ways, if we could get more Tremors, get more fans. Oh God, I wish. No, I don't. So yeah, if that only, considering this only, yes, it will be better. I know exactly what you meant. So going forward, I'm going to keep these going. It's not just going to be a 2020 thing. I'm going to continue this into 2021. Hopefully, if Sci-Fi Scarborough does happen, then I'll do a stream about that and sort of seeing how that goes, because chances are it will probably be about 50% me sitting on my arse and 50% sort of just gawping and simping at all the guests that are around me. Considering where they said that they were going to put me this year, I really hope they keep me in the same location, because that would mean that I would have my stand of books right next to the Daleks. So these actors in Daleks will be like trundling about. They might probably have the actor that played Davros sitting like opposite. So like the passing trade I get would be great, because it's just like, oh, you want to stop and gawp at the Daleks? Why don't you buy a book? Which is great, because that is like in the convention centre. It's like on the main artery, like going from the from the hall where they've got all the guests into like the trading stands and like all the stormtroopers and whatnot. So it's like you have to go past us to get to other places. So fingers crossed. So again, if it doesn't happen, that's fine, because I've still got more stuff to gush about on here. And probably the last 2 weeks in January, if all things go according to plan. I'm going to get a bit better, really. I've missed a few live streams this year. I think I was supposed to have 8, but I got 5, so I think I missed 3 months collectively. But then I think it's 2020. I think that's a good enough excuse. But again, soon to be no longer. So the next time we come will be January 21. Whatever next year holds will hopefully be a lot more better. It'll certainly be interesting. You know, we're not going to be bored one way or another. So yeah, I will take this as an opportunity to round off. And thank you everyone for coming. Thank you all for putting up with my rambling. Really glad I finally got to commit to actually like keeping all the art into one place and just say, right, there you go. Again, when this comes live, I shall link to everyone in the channel description, or on the. It's probably going to be pinned comment actually. So yeah, credits for everyone, and we'll see you all next time on the rather bizarre feeling of next year. So thank you all again for coming. Thank you very much, Shane. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. And see you next time. Stay safe. Have a wonderful new year.